you'll listen to Pine Green Trees. Call number is 1-347-326-9626. Excited. It's wasn't really announced before, but we're happy to reach out and back to Jamie Lowell, who's in Ann Arbor. I think standing by with him is the one and only Matt Abel of Cannabis Council. Is this true?
Next week, we'll do it.
Can I bring some of these with him? No. To you, Michael, to file a lawsuit. And he continues to 30.
Sure, man. Can you talk?
Hello? Are we there?
Stop talking about me. I can hear.
Hello?
Oh. Jamie, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, get me if you can. I was excited.
I was telling you to come back from that song for about 5 minutes, and you wouldn't cut that shit out and come back to the guest, so we lost the guest because of your lack of listening to what I'm saying is going on.
It was Pat Bennett.
And I would have to find somebody else.
Why don't you just jump? Come on. All right, fine. Well, what's going on at your fundraiser over there? Angry Producer
There is a lot of business owners here, lawyers, politicians, lobbyists, advocates, and everybody supporting this cause of the local ballot initiative. And it's a really excellent turnout. I'm sure they did really well. The balcony up here at Dominick, for those familiar with it, is pretty much packed. A few people are starting to leave, but generally it's still moving on pretty strong. And I think they had a good success here tonight. There was an auction as well that Matt Abel resided over. They raised some funds that way. Let me see if I can get a hold of somebody here, because I queued a couple people up, and I just want to get some involved and talk more about the Footnote 9 and this effort that's going on here tonight. Let's see if I can get somebody going here. And in fact, Matt Abel is nice enough, even after that Zach kind of made him come out here and wait for a little bit. But anyway, here we go, and let's get Matt Abel.
Matt.
Hi there, this is Matt.
Matt, Michael, come on. Thanks for coming on the show, and I apologize for making you wait.
No sweat. Good evening, Mike. Good to talk to you.
You too. I wanted to, we've been talking about, we're calling our show Footnote 9, seemingly many...
In Ter Beek.
In Ter Beek, right. Many cities and villages, townships are still holding on to this footnote, seeming, what would be a unanimous opinion by the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. 10 judges pointing out that the state's rights cannot be abrogated by the local ordinances, that we still have them. I had Vic Vicious on a few minutes ago and John Wells, who both are experiencing awful circumstances by their local government, just torturing and limiting the violations, the protection of the act. Is this something that you've seen apparent throughout the state, and what do you think about it?
Well, some cities are making noises about that. And, for example, the city of Livonia, where they weren't a party to this case, but it directly impacts their ordinance. I think their ordinance was identical to the Wyoming ordinance that was struck down. But Livonia, to my knowledge, hasn't modified their ordinance, so it's still on the books. But we all know that it's not valid. They cannot prohibit a patient from using cannabis in a city, and they can't prohibit a patient from possessing cannabis in a city. It remains to be seen whether they can even zone for a patient to grow in their own home or for a patient to grow anywhere at all. To me, Footnote 9 was more about the business implications of it, that they're saying that, when it gets to commercial regulation, certainly a city can zone that kind of activity. That's what I think Footnote 9 is about.
We had Dan Kropkin on, and he was, right after the opinion, and, his position was, the things that are very clear, all the basic fundamental rights of what Section 4 essentially allows for as limitations, was unequivocally, decreed as being valid, and no city could stop it. He did leave open the possibility that they might be able to regulate some things for safety purposes, and I would agree with that. I read it that way, but traditional zoning issues of signage, hours of operation, that they would not, zone just because it's marijuana, but they would for any business. Those things are going to be, less contested issues. But I couldn't
right,
really
appropriate stuff. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, but we were trying to think of examples that might be more in conflict, like a safety issue, one where, I mean, I could foresee the, locations in close proximity, but that's just a zoning issue anyway, But, maybe like requiring places to have, see some of the limitations that they may require, but that would require someone to reveal privacy of their patient center. What comes to mind to you where you would see some possible?
It keeps cutting out. Mike, I'm sorry, it's cutting out. I can't hear you at all right now.
Or I would say, with Footnote 9, what do you see that as being allowable? Like, what did you?
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
Michael, Matt handed me back the phone. He couldn't hear what you were saying. Now we got a kind of a crowd around us, and it was cutting in and out.
All right.
So we had a couple other people here though we could move on to, and he says thank you very much, and he's getting back to the party. But we'll have him back on. It's been a little while since he's been on, so
yeah,
we should arrange that again. I'm seeing right now Sharmy and Robin and Drew and Kevin McKinney and Steve Sharp and Mark Passerini and Chuck Ream and Tim Beck. And I saw Denny Hayes, who said he wanted to come on here in a minute, but he might not be around. It's like Jeff Hank and Tom Levine are here, David Cahill, Roger Mulfort. A lot of these guys have been on our show before. Let me see if Tom is available here for a second to talk about this stuff. You want to come on for a second? Here's Tom Levine, also from the Cannabis Council.
All right. Tom,
Thomas Levine here with Cannabis Council.
Tom, thanks for joining us. Michael Camorn, Planet Green Trees. Was just talking to your brethren over there. He was very insightful in this issue we've been talking about tonight, which is the footnote number 9 of the Ter Beek opinion, and how some of these cities have really grasped onto it and tried to rely on it as an interpretation that they can still somehow, some way restrict the very clearly articulated, protected behavior outlined in Section 4 at a minimum. What are your thoughts on that, and is this something that you've experienced in your practice?
No, the footnote does not stand for such. In fact, it's completely contrary to the thrust of that case. The whole case is about that they may not restrict what is given under the Medical Marijuana Act. Any right that is under that Medical Marijuana Act that local government cannot take away. My partner and our of-counsel, Alan Kaufman, wrote the dual sovereignty article in Wayne State University Law Review, and the dual sovereignty does not exist between a state government and a local government as it does between the federal government and the various state governments under our system of federalism. Now, granted, there is dual sovereignty between the federal government and the state governments, and that's why in Ter Beek versus City of Wyoming, they did rule that it's not preempted. That is, the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act shall not be preempted by the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Now, that same dynamic, the preemption action, you move it into the mix of Michigan. You got the state government and the local government. People should not be confused that duality also has a split of sovereignty, of dual sovereignty. No, it doesn't exist there. Don't get confused there. Local governments derive every iota of their power from the state government. There is no dual sovereignty, and therefore these local ordinances are preempted by the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act without a doubt.
Amen, brother. Very well said. And, I was trying to get this answer out of Matt. I mean, returning to footnote 9, Matt's comment was, it was never intended, of course, to contemplate any kind of restrictions. You just articulated very well. but it does say this, and I want to know what do you think they're referring to when they say this in footnote 9? Contrary to the city's concerns, obviously the city of Wyoming, this outcome that state law trumps any city ordinance let me start over. Contrary to the city's concern, this outcome does not create a situation in the state of Michigan where a person, caregiver, or group of caregivers would be able to operate with no local regulation of their cultivation and distribution of marijuana. What do you think the intentions were of that footnote?
What that footnote was intended for was regulation of marijuana activities outside of the boundaries of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, such as those coming down the pipe in the Provisioning Center Act. Certainly, these local governments will be able to adopt that Provisioning Center Act and institute zoning ordinances accordingly, and they can pick how many feet away from whatever they come up with next. It's getting a little ridiculous, all the things they want to put us 1,000 feet away from. They wanted us all to be crowded together in cages. Why all of a sudden do they want us 1,000 feet away? I don't buy it. I don't buy it's arbitrary and capricious. This needs to be challenged. The separation between dispensaries of 1,000 feet is unconstitutionally arbitrary and capricious.
I agree. I mean, if there's, we took calls from John Wells out of, he's up in Greenwood Township. I mean, it's like a acid trip listening to what he's going through. And then also Vic Vicious is, I think they filed a complaint to try to join him as a caregiver. They were, there was like but it's happening all over the state. I mean, is there any one community you think that's most vulnerable? Is there one outrageous ordinance that you think stands above all, or one community that's, and how is it going to change? I mean, John Wells described the situation almost like, that's how we do it here. I don't care what the law says. That's how we do it here. And I've been up there, and I know that prosecutor up there in the county of Oscoda County. I mean, not seasoned, and they're not. It's very difficult to have a common sense conversation with them, maybe just because of the, local politics. I mean, do you think these communities? And John described a very spread out community. It's not like a lot of people are congregated in the same area. It's hard to get support. The political landscape is challenged. What do we do in those situations? You got any ideas on that?
I think these are all primed for either petitions for writ of mandamus or other civil actions of injunctive relief in this case. This is absurd. Versus Wyoming, it's as though they're a bunch of, I don't know how to describe them, but it's as though they're grasping for straws, so to speak. And it's absurd. It's to the level of absurdity. And I'm really losing my patience with all this.
What I want to...
These local governments and this Michigan Municipal League and this Gerald Fisher white papers. Oh, my God. Look at the green paper of Chuck Green, a historical document. And they keep harping on these different red herring issues, and this is just another one of those. I'm afraid it's intellectually dishonest to imply that this footnote would permit flagrant ignoring of the rights of the patients and caregivers under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act, where it is so clearly stated that immunity shall attach for medical use. And so Ter Beek in Wyoming, our Supreme Court of the state of Michigan has settled this. We're done with this.
Let me ask you this, and maybe we'll even have you on another night to talk about it. I'm sure just because of the general nature of this issue, and because it really is a new emerging protection in Michigan, but I'm talking about the whole Michigan Supreme Court People versus Moreno and an individual's right to resist police activity or anyone's activity if they're not lawfully present in the Constitution-protected areas. And then the most recent case of versus Quinn. I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't know what I'm talking about, but you know,
sure, yeah, I do actually. It's a very interesting issue, and you know, police have to have thick skin. I litigated a case in Hawaii where you know a defendant said "fuck you" to the cops, and we won. This is freedom of speech. Cops are held to a higher standard. They have to have a thick skin to take this sort of abuse once in a while. What do they expect? They're knocking down our door. We have our 9-month-old baby in the room. They're throwing bombs into our room. What do they expect from a man or a woman, a strong, both? And you know, how dare they, you know, even imply that we remain timid and silent with the First Amendment as it stands. You know, I had actually represented somebody who was speaking on a milk crate on a corner in Hawaii. It was sort of a classic. But that issue came up, and it was very interesting. The freedom of speech is alive and well in America. And, you know, that First Amendment also includes freedom of association, and this includes freedom of these businesses to associate and innovate, for engineers to innovate in the creative arts and the sciences, to take hemp to the next level. Packaging, for example. Why are we not using the biodegradable option of hemp? You know, all of the diversity of this natural resource that has been denied of this, you know, through the centuries, it's just intolerable. And freedom of association would apply in all these circumstances, including these compassion clubs, and the freedom for people to get together and to, you know, I won an argument up in Gladwin concerning the right of a family to garden together. You know, they were trying to assert Bilesma to say, oh, you get a lock in the separate room for my wife. Well, I had my beautiful wife in the courtroom, and I said, you try to put a wall in between me and my wife, I got another thing coming for you. There's no way. I will not tolerate it. It infringes upon the marital relationship, for example, and for these local governments and these ordinances to step in and try to further stand in the way of the American farmer is what built this country. The family, the husband and wife should be allowed to garden together. I have no tolerance for this.
A lot of people don't.
Danny Hayes is on deck. Should I seek him out?
Certainly, but I love
whenever you're ready.
I love the passion, and this is a great topic. I want to even explore this other thing about, you know, resisting. You know, people don't. The information that people, you and I, every day that we are. First, if he's available, that'd be fantastic. But Tom, I appreciate.
I would love to engage in the dialectical materialism that is my approach to life. I'm a scientist first, and we have to solve our problems with an objective approach. Now, the legendary Danny Hayes, please, here he is.
Morning, Rick. Morning, Michael.
Good morning, Denny. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk to you. You know, you were the big draw tonight. I think we've got like 4,000 listeners because they were hoping that they were going to hear from Denny Hayes at some point tonight. But
oh, good.
You had this fundraiser up in Ann Arbor, and I know you're raising money for the Safer Mish
campaign.
Campaign.
It's going greatly, and Michael, you'll appreciate the fact that Mark Brewer showed up, Jeff showed up, Jeff Irwin, Saber Briere, and you and I both are well aware of the fact that the politicians didn't even know our names as near as 18 months, 2 years ago. So, for good or evil, for good or bad, we're on the charts now, and we can look forward to a long list of daily solicitations from political parties. Of course, I assume you guys have talked about the Monday fundraiser for boy, it's hard to say, Richardville, and we have people have been working very hard to find people that you can connect with, and that we're having some success. So all of the political activity looks positive, and it's easy to be optimistic when you're hanging out with this crowd. But in fact, it's going pretty well. We're fighting, the usual stuff. But where's the appeal in your case in Oakland County about the entrapment issue? Has it gotten through circuit court? Are you on appeal? Or
we're waiting on the appeal.
Got any dates?
No dates as of yet. I did want to ask you about this other issue. I didn't realize we really don't have a lot of time left, but we were talking about this article. The footnote 9 of the Ter Beek. Cities are holding on to that. What? We just had Tom on, and he was very passionate about and explaining that there is no dual sovereignty of the cities, villages, and the state, that they get their sovereignty from the state. He wrote an article for the Wayne Law Review. But Ter Beek, not just the unanimous opinion of the Supreme Court, but it was really like 10 judges, because it's a unanimous opinion by the Court of Appeals as well. Yet still we find some conflict here in the reading of it. What do you make of it, and at what point in time are they going to just wave the white flag? Or is it just they're doing it because they can and they have more ammo to throw over the wall?
Well, we've tossed the opinion tosses the ammo over their wall, and some of them are responding by dealing with it, and that's happening in several townships that I'm aware of. But there are other townships, like Ypsilanti Township. The township attorney was real quick to tell me, "Oh no, we think footnote 9 gives us room to do something." And so, and that's happening other places too. So what I mean is, what I would guess it means institutionally is they've just decided to, fight every battle on that front and hope to wear us out. Whether or not the Court of Appeals of the Supreme Court bothers to clarify that, and if they have the opportunity, I don't know. But what happens is that, you're pulling another brick out of the wall. And in fact, what we have to do is get them to start. They're going to do this to start doing it as a zoning law enforcement, so you can just fight it in a civil or a non-threatening criminal way. But as you know, we've talked about this before in another context in terms of whether the courts will obey the law. But as we've seen, they're most interested in not obeying the law. As a practical matter, we haven't seen any real. You have the greatest number of progressive opinions, but I think we're right if we said they're mostly at a district court level. So that means that those judges are more aware of it. And I would guess in the concept of Ter Beek, we're now at the circuit court level. If they're doing zoning cases. So I don't know. I'm sure you and I both agree that we would have never imagined this level of institutional resistance.
Well, I will say this. I had, and I'll just talk for a second. I've kind of moved on past it.
Yeah.
But I had an opinion written in a case that I had in St. Clair County, and it's the defendant is John Roberts. He's been on the show a lot of times. He's talked about it, but the judge wrote like a 19-page opinion, and he took Hartwick and Tuttle and just took it like 4 steps further, making a conclusion that even though he concludes that he characterized the defendant as someone who had specialized knowledge. He characterized him as an expert of someone who had specialized knowledge in cannabis and cannabis oil making. But despite that fact, he doesn't have medical knowledge. And the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act requires that a physician, not the patient, not the caregiver, not self-medicating, but the doctor know and suggest what the reasonable amount is necessary. And
it's an impossible standard.
It's right. But the thing is, every single patient that's mentioned in this opinion, the judge saw the medical records, saw the certifications. They were all cancer patients. Every single one of them. 2 of them have died since the opinion came out. So it's one of those cases for the ages where every single fact turns back to a true ill person who was generally cut off from the medical, the medical system, and that whole thing. And yet, none of those persons, they were certified by their oncologists. The oncologists could have cared less how much marijuana they were using, So it's
yeah.
But that was one that I've never, and it was, I had this argument because I filed a motion to reconsider, which is basically like, Judge, I know you spent, 9 weeks writing this opinion that's 20 pages long, and I recognize that you really went out of your way to understand things, and I do disagree with you, but I do respect what you did. You're a fucking idiot because you did this, and I know. Time.
We're getting kicked out of Dominick.
But he says to me, Mr. Kamorn, I just think you're always going to have a very difficult time unless the doctor is the one that is prescribing this. And I said, and he wouldn't even grant my, motion to stay pending Harvick and Tuttle because he doesn't think that they're going to be reversed. I mean, it was very.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm sorry to mean to ramble on there, but the stories are awful. What about you?
It's more stories, but like I said, it's another brick out of the wall. We're getting kicked out of Dominick, so James is grabbing the phone from me. As always, a great pleasure to talk with you. My regards to your many listeners, and keep up the fight, and don't let the bastards get you down.
You got it, Daddy. Thanks.
Nice to talk with you, Michael.
All right, we're closing down Dominick's. They put out some kind of a siren to get us out of here. Representative Irwin showed up, Sabre Briere, a few more people right at the end. So very successful tonight. Chuck said they brought in a very decent amount to help out with these efforts, and that's it. I'm assuming that we're just about ready to wrap up anyway, but it was a great night here.
Fantastic. Good stuff, Jimmy. Good job, and we're going to let you go, and we're going to wrap it up here as well. Thanks a lot. Good.
All right, have a good night, you guys. Thanks. Bye.
You did a good job producing. I was a little angry earlier. Okay. So we're going to wrap it up. I think it's about enough. I want to thank everybody for listening. Our guests, Vic Vicious, John Wells. We look forward to hearing back from you guys if you're interested in calling and updating us. Rick, of course, with the news. Hope he's back next week in the studio. And Jamie and the calling guests discussing this crazy issue of number 9. And Chad, any final thoughts before you rock?
No, I'm good. Thank you, though, for asking. And I enjoyed the show.
All righty, then. We are going to wrap it up right there, and we will see everybody next week. Be safe, and we will talk at you then.